So welcome to our panel on the challenges and gaps in the legal environment surrounding tokenized assets. We have with us Vandana Taksali. Where are you? You're in Toronto, Vandana.
I'm in Toronto.
Excellent. And Alex Sisoenko. Alex, you're in Moscow, is that right?
Yes, in Moscow.
And I was born in New York, but during COVID, I fled to Australia, where we have almost no cases of COVID, and so I'm broadcasting from Sydney. So, hi everyone, good to be here. Quick intro, Vandana. I've known you for quite a long time. You are a very, very talented speaker, lawyer, representative of several very talented artists, and we're very lucky to have you here. So thank you very much for joining us. And Alex, you're on the task force, the blockchain WIPO task force, working out standards for registering art. Thank you very much for your amazing contribution to this community. We're going to be covering quite a lot of ground. Vandana is going to be answering legal questions for artists. Guys, please feel free to use the chat window to ask us questions. My background is I've been in tech all my life. I've been building blockchain and identity systems with my team now for many years. And we also produce a conference called NFT NYC every year. The last conference was in February. We had 100 speakers, quite a few artists, and so I get to talk to the community. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing today is telling you guys some of the things that we're being asked, and I'm going to be asking Vandana and Alex to help me answer those questions. In the art space, the biggest problem that I think we need to solve, and I think you've heard this from other speakers over the last few days, is that artists don't really benefit when their artwork is resold. They don't get a recurring revenue, they don't get royalty. And we think the blockchain can solve that problem. We've built a platform to do that, and there are several other platforms to do that, but it's going to take a lot of education, both for artists and the community. The second issue is how do we protect our digital rights? How do we register things on the blockchain? IP law has not really evolved around artists, it's revolved around corporations, but we think the blockchain can be used to protect artists. We're going to talk about that. And then lastly, which I think is a problem that we dream about a lot at my company, and that is identity and content. How do artists use the blockchain to represent themselves, and how do they use the blockchain to distribute their art and get out into the market? How can an artist go beyond just relying on their gallery to tell people about their projects? So Vandana, you've very kindly put together a series of questions that you'd like to answer. Why don't we go to the first question? There's a slide there for that. And Vandana, let me hand over to you then. What's the first question that you would like to talk about?
Well, I think we should talk about the positive aspect of how blockchain is really going to revolutionize things for the art world. And really that has to do with art crimes. Up until now, most records are paper-based, and there hasn't really been any kind of registry, centralized registry to really record these things. But now with blockchain, we're seeing the potential for really revolutionizing that and having a central database to really have records to be transparent and immutable, that they can't be changed. Right now, art crimes are the third largest crime in the world after drugs and weapons, if you can believe that. And so I think, one of the disadvantages that I see right now in the art space is this huge potential to really go after counterfeit art and works that are not authentic. And
how is it going to do that, Vandana? How is it actually going to do that?
Well, it's just by the very nature of blockchain, the fact that it's an immutable distributed ledger, and once you place a record on it, you can't change it. So when you compare that to the way current things are being done with paper-based records, this is a huge leap in step for the art world to have the, to be able to put the records on a ledger that can't be changed. Now, the big deal is going to be the fact that, once you do that, you're still, dealing with the issue of, getting people to adopt it and to actually do that. But once I think we have it as a norm that the art world kind of accepts, I think it's something moving forward that can be, quite wonderful for the art world.
So specifically, it means an artist needs to actually go and register their work on the blockchain. And then someone who goes to acquire artwork needs to go and check that register to make sure that what they're buying is authentic. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you'd want to have some verifiers or people ensuring that what's being placed on the blockchain, that they are who they say they are. You mentioned digital identity, and secondly, the fact that these records can be verified, and so getting an accredited appraiser or an auction house or gallery, or someone to ensure the authenticity of the records that are being placed are actually who they say they're from, basically.
Mm. And are the standards that you're creating on WIPO, Alex, do you believe that they will help solve the problem that Vandana is talking about, and reduce art crime?
You see, standard is just the mean of synchronization of all offices with in this work. So, of course, the crime battle and work with crimes is serious. I'm not sure that present registers are not made for the struggle with crimes. We could do it just now, but blockchain gives us the new potential and possibility to do it very quickly and with low transaction costs. Low transaction costs means effectively.
Okay, excellent. Great. Well, why don't we go on to the next slide? And now let's talk about jurisdictions. Vandana, I know you've thought a lot about this. And do you want to talk about how are different jurisdictions dealing with the legalities around blockchain? Maybe start with, what's your favorite jurisdiction?
I don't really have a favorite jurisdiction. I'm about having all jurisdictions kind of working together, and I think that that's what we're going to be seeing happening because of the blockchain. So right now, though, the issue really is that when you're looking at blockchain, the nodes are all around the world. So it's not like a typical legal agreement that you may have with someone where it can be jurisdictional based. Because the nodes are all over the world, it's like, how do you decide which jurisdiction is going to govern? So, for example, if you're dealing with a banking agreement or any kind of commercial transaction, usually the contract will govern, and it'll be the governing law that's stipulated in the contract. But when we're talking about a decentralized ledger, it's difficult to really identify what is the governing law when the nodes are really all over the world. So, the solution to something like this, and I think a lot of the players in the space have to think about, is ensuring that they do specify a jurisdiction in their contracts and have that govern what's going on. I also think that we're seeing, as Alex mentioned, a lot of standardizations among jurisdictions on different aspects of blockchain to make something like that a lot easier.
So just slowing you down just for a moment, when you talk about the contracts, do you mean a contract between an artist and the purchaser of the art?
Any kind of agreement of any kind of transaction when you're utilizing blockchain, you basically want to have any kind of legal transaction. You want to have it.
But that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem now, isn't it? That end users aren't really they don't necessarily sign contracts with artists. So we need to change the way we transact if that's going to work. And otherwise there's no contract to put a jurisdiction into.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I deal with a lot of artists. It's very much contractually based. There may be some artists that skip contracts for sure, But a professional artist would definitely have a contract in place, but then there's also just the terms of use of a platform. So sometimes you may not have a direct contract where you're signing something, but you definitely have a terms of use that will govern how you're using a blockchain platform. So in those terms of use, you can, put terms in there to specify what is the governing law. The other thing that I want to point out too is also talking about
just back to your point about jurisdiction. You suggested that people put a jurisdiction in their contract. Can you give artists guidance as to which jurisdiction you think they should be putting in? Because obviously some jurisdictions are better than others.
Yeah, no, once again, I mean, it really depends, on the parties, and it's really up for them to decide. It's where they would want to have, where they would want to have the governing law be. So, I mean, obviously, if you're a Canadian artist, I would recommend having the governing law be in Canada. If you're in the U.S., you'd want it to be in the U.S. because you'd most likely hire a lawyer that's in your own jurisdiction. If you're a blockchain platform, once again, I would probably choose the jurisdiction of where you're likely going to, have the issue at hand and have legal counsel where, that you're going to be choosing that you're comfortable with. So, but I was going to point out also, there is another dispute resolution avenue that can be looked at, which is, there's a new International Court of Art at The Hague, and you can actually put in an arbitration clause and have the International Court of Art look at those disputes. And I see no reason why blockchain type art disputes can't be determined by the International Court of Art. So I'm actually an art arbitrator with the International Court of Art. A bunch of lawyers around the world that practice in art law and entertainment and IP decided that the court system isn't really the right avenue to go to when it comes to art disputes. Courts just don't have the specialization. And I think we're going to find that similarly with a lot of these blockchain disputes and also with digital art disputes and NFTs.
So you're actually an arbitrator. You're an arbitrator on the International Court in The Hague. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
What are some of the things that you consider when you're arbitrating a dispute?
Well, really, it really depends on the evidence, and in those cases, you're looking at expert evidence, and evidence on the blockchain, in my view, is evidence. And a lot of the people listening may not be aware of this, but courts are now slowly starting to recognize evidence on the blockchain as evidence because of its time-stamped, permanent, immutable nature. It's amazing. So there was a case a few months ago with TikTok, and there was a copyright infringement against them with another video sharing platform. This was in China. That there's a court that just deals specifically with internet disputes, and they looked at evidence on the blockchain as being something as evidence, and TikTok ended up winning their case. So I think the more we pursue cases like that and we present evidence on the blockchains to the court systems, we'll start seeing more decisions. And I think that's going to, be really helpful for artists and for the blockchain platforms out there that, run into these things.
And I would have thought if you're using the blockchain as evidence of ownership, how things are recorded to the blockchain is very important. And that's sort of where Alex comes in. Alex, I think this might be an opportunity for you to perhaps talk about what are the elements of some of the standards that you are recommending people actually write to the blockchain so that people like Vandana, when they're ruling on ownership, have all the evidence that they need.
Thank you, Jody. Colleagues, sorry, but my English is not so brilliant like yours. So give me, please, 3 minutes, 12 seconds to read my text about this, and then I'll be ready to discuss the question.
Okay, we'll come back to it. I think you're being very modest because I think your English is excellent. My Russian is terrible, so thank you for speaking English.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you,
it's a
Jody.
pleasure. Let's I have a question from the audience. I'm not sure who's asking it, but it says, would it be totally wild idea to look at other legal areas such as maritime law, where there are existing models for working across and through borders? So that's a super interesting question. And I also parallel the problems we're trying to solve in the art world to the domain world, which I also am quite involved in. We own the top level domain.cred. And there's an amazing organization called ICANN that does also, like maritime law, work across borders and settles disputes globally. It actually gives me goosebumps to think that we have these organizations like ICANN and maritime law, and now what Vandana is doing, where we're solving the problems across country borders. What do you think about that, Vandana? You can see that question about maritime law. What's the parallel between maritime law and what you're doing?
Well, I think it's similar to what you're talking about. It's basically, I think, setting up your blockchain dispute system similar to the Court of Art, and ICANN, having those types of disputes adjudicated, because we are seeing that they are going to be across jurisdiction. So that's why I was suggesting right now there's no such thing that exists, and so if you're in the art space, perhaps go to a place where you can get that expertise to look at those type of disputes. But I'm also hopeful. I think that things will start changing. I think I've already seen some changes in the law in the US, for example, where states are recognizing evidence on the blockchain. So I think as time passes, I think courts will develop that expertise as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So that brings us to the next question, which is, if I'm an artist, what platform should I use? And Vandana, you probably have some thoughts about that. And now, by platform, I guess, the first part of that is what blockchain. My view is, of course, that you should be using the most popular blockchain. It's been built for registering assets. And that's why we've used Ethereum and Ethereum sidechains for our non-fungible token projects. Is that how you see it as well in your world, Vandana? That artists should be using Ethereum as the blockchain?
Well, I'm building a blockchain, an art platform myself called Artcryption, and I've been looking at a lot of blockchains myself. My view is that most of them are pretty still early stage, and so it's not so much the blockchain. I think it's important to have whatever blockchain you use to have it be interoperable and being forward thinking about these things. And when someone is choosing a particular art platform to use, I think the more that there are out there, the better it is for the whole ecosystem, because it'll help with increased adoption. Every platform has their own sort of network of artists or people that are going to onboard different ones. And I think the more that are out there, the more artists will start using them. But having said that, I think the platforms still need to be cognizant of the fact that blockchain still has some, views from the average public, that there's some concerns about it when it comes to security or data privacy or issues of hackers, things like that. So I think it's very important for any platform owner to be very sensitive to the needs of its users and ensure that when they're looking at their terms of use, for example, that they don't waive any liability and add clauses like we're providing it as is, but taking on some of that responsibility and not putting the users at risk, and looking at
just jumping in, I think the most successful platforms are going to be those where the blockchain is actually invisible, where the blockchain is simply being a back end for registration. What we've seen is that normal people don't really want to understand blockchain, or they're fearful of it. They've heard bad things when it comes to Bitcoin and speculation, and so what we do with our NFT cred product and our art cred product is we really make the blockchain a fairly invisible part of it. And even the word tokenizing scares people off. I think registering is probably a better word. And so when it comes to art, we think that as I said earlier, the problem that the artist wants to solve is how do they get an ongoing royalty? Well, if there is a contract attached to the art and that is registered on the blockchain, then every time that artwork is sold on a platform, and it could be the platform that they used for tokenizing, it could be another platform, then money comes back to the artist. That's really great. The other part of it is, can we use the tokenization as a way of spreading the word about the digital art? And I think that's important. I mean, we've seen social networks take over from mainstream media. Why wouldn't online and digital distribution at least run in parallel with the more traditional ways of popularizing art? And so we're actually putting a lot of our energy into how do we use registration and tokens to spread the word. And I think for your brother, Gary, and for those of you who don't know, Vandana has a brother who's a very successful artist. And Gary Taxali also has the option to use Instagram, but also tokenization to spread the word about his really good work. And you've probably seen that with some of your clients as well. Anyway, why don't we keep moving? If we can go to the next slide, because I think we've got very limited time. This is a fantastic example of something that a project called Voxel Bridge. And this was built on your platform, wasn't it, Alex? Alex, you have also been the founder of a platform that creates VR art. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's the Voxel Bridge project and what Jessica Angel has done?
Really speaking, Spheroid Universe, which is represented by me, is taking part in this project, but the project is huge and many companies are taking part in it. So is it possible now to tell some words, several words about Spheroid Universe? Or
please, that would be great. And also, I think it's probably a time we should thank Jessica Angel for her great work curating art for the Vancouver Biennale. So thank you, Jessica, if you're listening. Yes, please talk about Voxel Bridge, Alex, and Spheroid Universe.
Can we go to 2 slides?
You want to go, oops, that one? Oops.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's Spheroid Universe slide. There you go. Thank you.
Please, 1 slide above. Yes. The technological basis of the platform is Spheroid Universe XR Cloud and the Spheroid script programming language. So it's the real platform. The world of Spheroid Universe is the Earth surface parceled into plots called spaces. I will be answering these 3 questions. Can I be the owner of a location-based digital space over someone's land? Do I have the right to place my AR objects over private territory? And do I have the right to place my AR objects on objects and things belonging to someone? So please, next slide. This is AR World. And next slide, please. So, as I said, the Earth surface is parceled out into spaces like this. And each space, you can see space at the image. Each space is 50 by 50 meters. And the spaces are ERC 721 tokens and can be sold to the user of the platform. And please, next slide. I ch chosen here the map of Vancouver, and you can see that very many spaces are already bought by some users. I don't know what. I suppose that Vauxhall Bridge is bought also already.
So, Alex, what's going on here is that you've basically created a virtual ecosystem where people can locate their art. It can be 2D or 3D art, and people can interact with it. That's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you. I think we're running pretty short of time, and I know, Vandana, you wanted to cover a few more questions. So if we can just go back to the questions, please. How can blockchain help with, thank you very much, Alex. How can blockchain help with copyright infringement? Vandana, did you want to jump in and cover that quickly?
Yeah, quickly. I mean, I think I mentioned it already with the TikTok case of using blockchain as an placing evidence on the blockchain with a timestamp. But we're also looking at NFTs, and now we're seeing exciting things that we haven't been able to do in the real world. For example, collaborating on projects, resale royalties, being able to find artists, being able to reward artists, being able to protect even sketches or designs. Up until now, we've had to wait until we finally create a creation before we might take it to the government registration office. But what about all the ideas in between? We haven't been able to protect that, but the blockchain, in a very inexpensive, efficient way, can allow us to record those creations as well. And my hope is that one day that the government registries will be replaced with with blockchain-based copyright registries. It's cheaper, it's easier for artists, and and that's what we're looking at with my platform. But the biggest advantage is the fact that in the US, for example, you need to have a copyright registration before you can pursue a legal action. And it's for the odd, and you have to think of it before, you have to register it within 3 months, and you can get it expedited. It usually takes 8 months to get a registration, but it costs $800. So in Canada, it's about $50 a registration. But if you're an artist or photographer and you're creating hundreds of works in a month, you're not going to register all those works. So I really see blockchain as sort of taking over that. And you moved over to the rights management side of things as well. And through smart contracts, artists can really manage their rights without needing a gallery or an agent or someone, that's as an intermediary to really manage the IP rights of their creation.
Is anyone actually doing that? Do you know any artists who are actually doing that? Instead of using a gallery, they've got a blockchain contract for their rights management?
No, but I hope they'll use my platform, because that's exactly what we're going to be looking at, is helping artists manage all the rights that they have.
And how do people contact you, Vandana? If I was an artist watching this right now, how would I contact you?
They can go to artcryption.com. They can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, excellent.
They can also contact me if they need legal help through my law firm as well, and counsel.
Well, maybe this time next year we'll have some examples of people who've actually used you to do the rights management, because it's early days, isn't it, as you said earlier?
Well, yes, and but smart contracts it's not a new concept, and we're seeing people already actually using this with music rights, for example, as well. So it's quite relevant. So, but even when we're talking about smart contracts, you pulled up the slide about legal enforceability of smart contracts. So, when you hear the word smart contract, you're thinking of contract, but really it's really a computer code.
It's a set of instructions on the blockchain, isn't it? And so it is a good question. Is it legally enforceable? I guess it's, from a practical point of view, if it's a set of instructions on the blockchain, it really does happen.
Yes, but it's not the same as a contract. It's really a computer code. So it's really important to think about then in ensuring that smart contract has something embedded in it with issues like we talked about, like with jurisdiction, governing law, things like that, because at the end of the day, a smart contract is really computer code. So you want to ensure that you are making things legally enforceable by having having some of these other protections attached to it.
Okay, great. And maybe a question for you, Alex. In a virtual space like the one that you've created, what does the Constitution look like? What are the rules and regulations that apply to this virtual space? And how does someone who plays in the virtual space understand what the governing law is?
The impression is that the problem is not yet been recognized.
Okay.
And I didn't met yet any problem, but as questions are, I mean, these three questions: have I right to have the space, the volume above somebody's land? Have I right to place my object, AR object, to somebody's wall? To change, for example, some advertisement above shop to my advertising? We can do it now already, and no problem because it's going in virtual space, in virtual volume, and nobody's yet, I mean, not many people can see it. Please show a couple slides further. No. Yes. More, please. Oops. Where? Okay.
So this is an example of an object in a virtual space in Spherical Universe.
Yes.
That's
it's an
very
AR
cool.
cube, and this AR cube is placed above somebody's land. Will be this a problem or not? I am not sure yet. But
so if I was living in your world, I could place my artwork suspended in the sky and wake up in the morning and look out my window and see this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This piece of art. It's interesting.
Absolutely. And
amazing.
the problem is, for example, this problem. I mean, the problem with property is connected with private lands and less connected or not connected with public spaces. That's why the Voxel Bridge project it will be very interesting to test the situation in alive. And please show next slide. Sorry, the video doesn't work, but here we can see we can place K-pop advertising above somebody's shop.
That's great fun. So I just want to finish up. I think we've got like 2 minutes. Can we jump a few slides ahead to look at what I referred to earlier today about artist identity and how the blockchain can be used for that? I'll tell you when to stop. More. It's 3. It's got Gary Taxali's identity on it. Keep going. I think it's probably about slide 27 or 28.
I just wanted to add one thing to what Alex was saying, though, really quickly, that I thought what was really amazing about, he's talking about VR and AR in space.
Stop.
How it can be protected is we're now seeing with digital art that before, where it was just so easily reproducible and that we could, not necessarily, by the way, we have to get Gary's permission to show that because I don't think I got that. But with digital art, we can now protect it on the blockchain with a timestamp. And whereas before, when you're seeing anything virtually, it just can be easily reproducible. So with that timestamp, we're now seeing a way to monetize digital art with all these platforms. So that's very exciting. But once again, I'd say let's not.
What I wanted to do is just explain what we've done here. Those vandanataxali.cred is actually a domain name that is registered on the blockchain and on the internet. Dalek.cred as well is a domain name that's registered on the blockchain. So that means that that can be used to identify an artist on the blockchain and on the internet. So it's both
these aren't on the blockchain. These are just examples.
No, these are just examples, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we see artists putting their content on Instagram and various other places. Now what we can do with these domain names is actually using a product that we're releasing shortly called Link Cred. We can actually now link content that artists have all over the web to one domain that is both on the blockchain and on DNS, which is internet. So I think we're going to finish up now. Alex and Vandana, thank you very much. This has been a great session. Thank you to everyone in Vancouver. I love Vancouver. Last time I was there, I went to Jericho Beach and went kiteboarding. It's one of my favorite places. And I hope this time next year we actually get to physically be with you all in Vancouver. So thank you very much. And thank you, Brian. And we'll see you another day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.